Welcome to Beyond the Document, the podcast from Formpipe exploring everything that is output, document and customer communication management. On this episode, we're exploring the services and projects associated with implementing software, and the principles we discussed today are probably applicable across all industries and in any software solution, because as everybody knows, enterprise software delivers only once it's been configured and implemented correctly into the client organization. And the successful project and launch is critical to getting that user buy-in and guaranteeing the return on investment promised by those lovely guys in sales during the procurement stage. But as we explore this today, we will focus on Microsoft Dynamics implementations, given that that platform is something that we know so well, and look at how delivery of these projects has developed over time. So it's great that our guest today is Seer 365, who have focused on revolutionizing the traditional Dynamics implementation model, aiming at delivering greater efficiency for their partners and end customers. So joining us today is Richard Hughes, Partner Strategy Director at Seer. And Richard, welcome to the pod. Maybe you can take a minute just to introduce yourself.
Hi, thanks, Ben. Richard Hughes. I've been working in Dynamics now for around 19 years. So in a bunch of different roles, both within Microsoft and also in a number of systems integrators, both local ones and global systems integrators. So Dynamics is basically the only thing I know about. So I'm glad we're talking about this topic today.
And can you just bring out a little bit more of your day-to-day role at Seer, what you do within your role?
Yeah, so within my role, I work with partners around the world. So similar, one of the great things about Dynamics is that there are literally thousands of partners based in just about every country around the world that work with Microsoft technologies, both Dynamics, but also the wider Microsoft Cloud ecosystem to bring value to organizations. So I work with them to talk to them about the challenges they're having. Much like most technologies, Dynamics has got a bit of a resource constraint. So because of the growth of Dynamics, so currently it's growing at about 35% quarter on quarter, so really rapid growth. So because of that, they're looking to be more efficient in the way that they both sell and implement Microsoft Dynamics. So really, how can they bring value to their customers quicker, which is something that we'll talk about in a minute. But really, that's something that customers want more of, is how they can get to value faster.
Sure. Okay. Well, I mean, a big part of that and a big change in delivery that I think everybody is aware of is remote working and being able to deliver implementations without being there on site. And, you know, we've all learned that since March 2020. Okay. But there was a movement towards that bit before COVID came. But I think if we just consider that as being understood, today's topic is more about the other aspects, you know, like the standardization and the automation and how that can drive the efficiency. So could you pick up on those elements and maybe, develop those a bit more for us?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started at Microsoft in 2002. And back then, customers really wanted to have that bespoke system. So they would buy an ERP system, be that Microsoft or any of the other ones, and then really develop heavily to make sure it was completely bespoke to them as a customer. Now, back then, or the good old days, as some people call it, it really was that on-prem, you would implement and you would have the same system for an extended period of time, sort of that 7 to 10 plus time frame. And actually, there's still customers out now who implemented an ERP or CRM system in the early 2000s that are still using it today. Now, as we've moved to the cloud, the move away from that and to making it more standardized. So if you look at Microsoft Dynamics, there's a platform upgrade twice a year, and you can only skip one of those. So if your system is massively tailored to you, that then creates a big overhead for the organization as those upgrades happen. So what we've seen is customers really want to move away from that, absolutely lessons learned from the past, to moving towards using standardized, either keeping as close to core product as possible, or when that core product doesn't work for them, using third-party ISV tools. So hopefully everybody on the call understands what an ISV is, but for the purpose of this, third-party software that works with a platform. So Ben, Formpipe obviously a great ISV working with Microsoft Dynamics, but obviously there's lots of examples of that. And I think that's one of the things when you're looking for a new ERP or CRM platform to work with, is to look at those third-party software. What's available? What are the programs that these vendors have in place to make sure that the standard is really high, the quality is really high? And Microsoft put a lot of effort into that, and there's lots of programs that they have to make sure that the third-party software people work with is of really high quality.
And I think there's a couple of really interesting points there. We can't change the way that we operated before, and there was nothing wrong with operating that way 20 years ago, but we're in such a different position now within the industry. So we've got to learn from where we built up that great degree of technical debt that probably held us back as organizations previously, and learn as we move forward. And I mentioned this too much, but adopt rather than adapt. I completely concur with what you're saying. You go out there and you look at the solution that is most suitable to your organization, but then really by purchasing that, you're buying the IP, you're buying the intelligence within that product. So then why go and fight against it?
And also you're buying the future as well, right? So I know we all talk about, there's amazing technologies out there, be that AI and drones and 3D printing if you're a manufacturer or whatever. But you are really buying into that platform for the long term. So it's important to understand that you're not just keeping standard to make the life of the IT department easier, but what it also means is as these vendors like Microsoft are investing huge amounts of money, and we're talking billions of dollars of R&D every year in the platform, as they bring these new technologies out there, you're then able to adopt these new technologies without having to do a major upgrade. So, I do think that's important when you're looking at the platform, is to look at that future roadmap and to see what's possible. You may not need it today. You may not want it tomorrow, but at some point to have it available to you, I think is really important. And that's why one of the benefits of keeping to standard.
And also, when you're introducing your role, that's where the global aspect comes into Microsoft as well, because you're taking, or you're being fed into that group ideas and thoughts and feedback around the product and what's required from the whole world. Yeah. So that's one hell of a community feeding into the improvement for everyone.
Absolutely. So if you look at, so within Seer, we work with partners, as I mentioned, around the world. So one of our newest partners, VeryPark, so they're a very specific ISV for the banking industry. So they've got a number of different solutions for that industry, but they're based in Turkey, right? So being able to pull this knowledge from companies all around the world is really important, and that, but again, keeping that level of quality there, so that that when you're working with an ISV, they've been certified by the vendor, by Microsoft in my case, so that the quality is there.
Yeah, brilliant. And the other thing that's important in today's market is, and this is for all organizations, to consider their impact on the environment and wider society, really. I mean, we know this ourselves. We've recently reviewed and relaunched our corporate social responsibility policy, because we're mindful that software, if used correctly and to its capacity, can drive so many benefits for all. So maybe you can touch on how the Seer approach helps deliver that and give us some examples.
Absolutely. So the sustainability, I'm actually the chair for sustainability for the International Association of Microsoft Channel Partners in the UK. So it's something that's close to my heart. And to be honest, I think sustainability has now moved from something that people did a few years ago because they were passionate about it, absolutely, but also to differentiate themselves from other organizations by getting some kind of certification like B Corp. And I was actually in a roundtable with Microsoft yesterday in London talking about sustainability and the advantages it brings to the partners, but also to their customers. So I think, within Seer, we think sustainability should be part of every business's core ethos, the way that they do business. There's benefits not just to them, to the environment, but also to them as organizations. So within Seer, because the tools we've developed help to both from the pre-sales and delivery aspects of the project, and making that much more remote. So you're still getting the same quality of output in the different phases of the project, but also you're able to do that remotely. So what that means is that you're able to bring in people without them having to travel. We've got an example of a very large multinational customer that we worked with on behalf of Microsoft. And they were looking to have a multi-tier ERP implementation. So for those of you not sort of so IT heavy, that's where you've got different types of ERP around the world. So in your bigger countries, you may have one type of ERP, and then in smaller countries or in certain sites, you would have potentially a different ERP, so multi-tier ERP. They were looking to have multi-tier ERP in more than 40 countries. Now, when we calculated that in the traditional model, where you would have had about, say, 2 people flying from one site. So I calculated it from London, from Heathrow, to the 40 countries around the world in economy from Heathrow. And the Heathrow bit's important because that's actually a lower emission hub than some other airports.
Okay.
Yeah, I know you can get really granular with this stuff. But we realized that we'd actually saved more than 100 tons of CO2 emissions by using the tool. So, and that's just one customer, one example, but where you're able to use technology. So we're on a Zoom call at the moment, but clearly I'm a fan of Teams as well. So to be able to do things in a more efficient way, I think there's other benefits as well. If you look at the wider sustainability in the ESG, so the wider, so environment, societal, and governance, you're able to then also bring in people that may find traveling difficult. So be they a parent, or maybe they have difficulty moving, and also things where they feel that when they're in a meeting room, there's lots of noise and they don't feel comfortable potentially in that room. They're able to have a voice around these decisions. So I think the use of technology brings additional benefits rather than just purely on emissions. So I again, very passionate about this stuff. I run a group of partners that try and share best practice to help to do it as well. And I know there's other groups like that around. So definitely sharing knowledge amongst your peers and your competitors is a good thing.
But you're bringing more value to a project by enabling those people to participate. Yeah, that's the beauty. And then in a pound, shilling and pence view as well, a lot of end consumers will now demand this from these organizations. Okay, so where you said previously these type of topics may have been nice to haves or because there was somebody passionate within the company, we are seeing where end consumers are saying, I will decide who I buy my product or service from based upon their performance. Have you seen that also?
Yeah, I'd almost put it in reverse though. It's almost you're qualifying yourself out if you don't have it. So it's assumed that everybody will be doing their best to be. I'll take one example: carbon neutral. Right? That every company that this mythical customer wants to work with has to be on a journey to be carbon neutral at a minimum. And if you're not there, then they're not even going to start talking to you. So again, I think a few years ago, it would have been a differentiator that you are doing it. Now it's, if you're not doing it, then it is a differentiator. They just want to work with you. So, but again, I think everybody's on this journey, or most companies are on this journey now. And I think what's been interesting is that people want to work with each other, to learn from each other. So it's a slightly more collaborative way of working now as well. But you're right. I would find it very difficult now to be speaking to a company that isn't on that journey. There are definitely ones that aren't, But I think most people have realised that they have to.
Yeah, sure. Well, that's a lovely move into collaboration, and therefore how we work with many partners now. The phrase partner ecosystem is one that I probably use every day, and I'm acutely aware that at Formpipe we're part of a number of different ecosystems depending on where we're working. The important thing that we see, and I'm sure you see as well, is that you can clearly define where your product or service starts and finishes, and therefore how it can enhance the other people within that ecosystem. So how does Seer approach that with your own partners and ISVs?
Yeah, so another job I've got is I'm the partner-to-partner chair for the IMCP as well for EMEA. So that kind of partner-to-partner piece from a systems integrator perspective is really important, where you're able to bring in the best of breed or people you know and trust to work with your customers, and that goes both ways. So I think that kind of motion is really important. Certainly from us in my previous lives, working with ISVs as a system integrator, that the ability to know that company you're working with is trustworthy. Trust is really important for all this stuff. What we do as a community is hard. There will never be a project that has zero issues, zero speed bumps along the way. So working with ISVs or working with other SIs to deliver on a project for a customer is really important. That trust is really important. Now, trust obviously is earned over time, but some of that is to do with hearing from your peers about, I'm working with Formpipe, they're a great partner, easy to work with. When there are issues, they get them resolved very quickly. These sort of things are really important, and that's why I think having from a customer perspective, working with an SI that really helps you pick the best ISVs to work with you is really important. But also talk to these companies. No technology company is ever going to be averse to having an end customer, phoning them up and finding out more about them and why you should work with Formpipe rather than with a competitor. So just do that research. There's plenty of stuff online always. It's really important to have that ecosystem, as you said, of technology providers working with that customer.
And I think, you can have partner onboarding programs, qualification programs, but then you also look at social media. Yeah. And when we use that within a professional sense, that does mean that you have to be open and transparent. It's peer-to-peer reviews, isn't it? So I do think we're enabling a better way of working by having that collaboration.
Absolutely.
I mean, it sounds a very exciting place to be in, given your multiple roles and being chairs of different areas. You're obviously involved in quite a lot. What do you see as maybe the main development to look at in the next 12 or 24 months that you see coming into this part of the industry?
So I think there's a few. So one of them is customers are certainly getting more, they're wanting to be able to do a lot more of this themselves. Right, so the ability to, so low code, no code is the term you'll hear quite a lot. So the ability to develop your own applications without having to go out. So I'm Welsh, and I'll roughly translate a Welsh proverb that my father likes to say, which is something that you grow is always something better than you buy. So the ability to use tools to grow your own stuff. So that might be applications. So within Microsoft, there's a thing called Power Platform. That's certainly a high growth technology that a lot of customers now are bringing in, where they're able to give the ability for their users to build applications. But also, if I think of things like reporting, document outputs, where you're not having to bring in third-party consultants to do heavy lifting. So maybe at the beginning to get things set up, but then the ability to make changes on the fly so that you're not having to start from scratch and have things that are out of date for months and years until you get enough budget to be able to create a new report or something. So the ability to have tool sets within your organization to be able to create things yourself I think that's really powerful. I think the other one is, and again, there's no rocket science here. So the move to that hybrid work. So I think obviously pre-pandemic, most people worked in an office. During pandemic, everybody went remote. So I now think things are moving the pendulum is moving a little bit more towards the middle. So how do you work in that hybrid environment where you're able to offer your employees a better experience, where you're not missing out because you're not in the office? So I think that's another big move as well.
Yeah, and I echo that as well from what we see internally. We spend a lot of time on making sure that we retain all the good things about working within a team, even though sometimes that team is via a screen, which is different. Yeah. Brilliant. Okay, and I'm not going to ask you whether or not you can say that proverb in actual Welsh, because that'd be putting you on there.
Yeah, I'll skip that for you. I can do, but yeah, I think we'll start to confuse people.
Fantastic. Well, Richard, that's been great. It's been a really good insight into what's happening within the industry and also what you're doing at Seer 365 to deliver that efficiency to your own partners and end clients. So thank you very much for joining us on the podcast today.
Thank you very much for having me. It's been great to speak to you.
Thank you for listening to Beyond the Document, and thanks again to Richard Hughes of Seer 365 for joining me today. You can learn more about the work that Richard and his colleagues do by going to seer365.com. And you can always catch ourselves on LinkedIn by searching for Formpipe. If you found this podcast to be useful or you've learned something new, then please do give us a rating or review on your go-to podcast platform of choice. I'm Ben Saxton. Catch you next time on Beyond the Document.